1. The Dead Mother. In a certain village there lived a loving husband and wife. Lived happily until the wife died in childbirth. The poor peasant wept and moaned, and above all was in despair about the babe. How was he to nourish it now? How to bring it up without its mother? So he did the best he could and hired an old woman to look after the child. But here was a real mystery. All day long the baby would cry and refuse to eat. There was no way to comfort it. Yet it would sleep peaceably at night, all night. This just doesn't make any sense, thought the old woman. I know. I'll keep awake tonight and see what I can find out. So she kept awake, and just after midnight she heard someone quietly open the door and go to the cradle. The babe became still, just as if it was being breastfed. The next night the same thing took place, and on the third night too. So the old woman finally told the peasant about it. He called all his relatives together to ask what he should do, and they decided to keep awake on a certain night and spy out who it was that came to feed the baby. So, on the appointed night, when the darkness took control, they all lay down on the floor. This was but a one-room cottage, and beside them they hid a lighted candle under an earthen pot. At midnight the cottage door opened, and someone, or something, stepped up to the cradle. The baby became still, and at that precise moment someone suddenly brought out the light. In horror, they saw the dead mother, wearing the clothes in which she was buried, down on her knees beside the cradle, over which she bent as she fed the baby at her dead breast. The moment the light shone upon her, the dead mother stood up, gazed sadly at her little one, and then went out of the room without a sound, not saying a word to anyone. All those who saw her stood for a time terror-struck, and when they finally nerved themselves to approach the cradle, they found that the baby was dead. The moral of the story: sometimes curiosity kills more than the cat. 2. The Warlock. Once upon a time, and back in the day, there lived a peasant, and he had 3 married sons. He lived a long while, and was looked upon by the people of the village as a wizard or warlock. When he was about to die, he ordered his sons to have their wives keep watch over his body for 3 nights, each wife taking 1 night apiece. He also demanded that his body should be placed in the living room, and that his sons' wives should spin wool to make him a caftan. Finally, he ordered that no cross should be placed on his body, and that none should be worn by his daughters-in-law. Hmm. Hmm. The first night, the eldest daughter-in-law took her seat beside him with some gray wool and began spinning. Midnight arrived, and then the father-in-law, lying in his coffin, said, "Daughter, are you there?" She was terribly frightened, but answered reasonably firmly, "I am." The father-in-law then said, "Are you sitting?" I sit." "Do you spin?" I spin." "Gray wool?" "Gray." "For a caftan?" "For a caftan." He arose from the coffin and moved towards her. For a second time he asked, "Daughter, are you there?" "I am." "Are you sitting?" I sit." "Do you spin?" I spin." "Gray wool?" "Gray." "For a caftan?" "For a caftan." She shrank back into a corner, but he followed her, and before she could pray, he reached out and strangled her. And then he returned to his coffin. In the morning, the Warlock's sons removed the body of the dead wife, and unbelievably, the next evening, they sent another daughter-in-law to keep watch. And the Warlock strangled her as well. He strangled her as well before he returned to his coffin. But the third wife was smarter than the first two wives. Indeed, she was smarter than the entire family. Before sitting up with the corpse, she claimed to have taken off her cross, but in reality, she hid it and kept it on. She took her seat and spun, but said prayers to herself while she worked. Midnight arrived, and her father-in-law said from his coffin, "Daughter, are you there?" "I am," she replied. "Are you sitting?" "I sit." "Do you spin?" "I spin." "Gray wool?" "Gray." "For a caftan?" "For a caftan." The Warlock rose from the coffin and began to follow the young wife around the room, eventually trapping her in a corner. But when he attacked, she laid the cross upon him, tapping him on the forehead, and he fell down, truly and forever dead. Afterward, the young wife looked into the coffin and found it full of money and jewels. It appeared her father-in-law wanted to take it all away with him. Take it all away with him, or only give it to someone who could outwit him. The moral of the story: they say you can't take it with you, but some are still gonna try. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,021 subs in 2021. Till midnight. Cheers! Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here, that's PX Here, while the music was the Hammer Horror-esque Ghost Processional by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.